Hello and welcome to TWWORk, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing people, the fantastic jobs they do and the paths that led them to where they are today.
To be honest, COVID worked really well for us.
Did it actually? What, actually just gave you a bit of time off?
No. Well, we'd shut the shop completely, and then, to be fair, it was a wonderful time for us.
What, busy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know that sounds awful, but
No, not at all.
But it was our best year that we ever had, because people couldn't visit neighbours, couldn't visit family, they couldn't go up for their mum's 100th. You know, there were a lot of events that people were really sad about and couldn't come and visit their family, and so they'd send flowers instead. We were doing a non-contact delivery at the doorstep. And so you felt like you were really helping people. You were spreading like the emotions.
Yeah, it was.
That summer was the summer that my brother died.
Right.
So all of this happened. I lost all identity of myself, and then very suddenly lost my brother. It was like 1 minute he was alive, 1 minute he was dead. He died of sepsis. So that was like a crazy moment, but I lost everything. I cannot begin to explain every single part of myself in that year, in that summer I lost. Yeah, I have always, and this is obviously going to be part of the fact that I am autistic, but I've always not felt like fully human, is the best way. I've always felt like how like everybody else can just do all of this, and I'm looking at them like, what on earth is going on? And I have felt for a long time during secondary school.
So if you're going through puberty and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like, I think as a child I felt like I didn't fit in, but it was never linked to my gender.
Yeah.
And then during secondary school, I really, really struggled with, like, my body changing, like getting boobs and stuff, because I was like, this feels so gross. Like, this feels so strange, because I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing my body change into what we see
and
as a woman
telling you you're
in
a girl.
society.
Yeah.
Everybody's telling me a girl, and I'm like, I don't want this to be happening like this. I don't want to be perceived this way.
At this point, there were no visitors. You couldn't have your visitors come onto the ward.
Yeah.
Your partners couldn't come onto the antenatal postnatal ward. We had birthing partners while they were in labour, but not afterwards or before. So the women were on the ward by themselves with just us. And in some ways, you know, a lot of women actually quite liked that.
Did they?
Because I guess it went back to, you opened your curtains, you chatted to the woman next door to you, because she's in the same boat. She hasn't got her partner with her either.
How did many women come in with, like, in labour with COVID?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you knew that because you had to test them when they first came?
Had to test them all, so we had to lateral flow everybody when
and
they
came
in.
Was everyone, sorry, this is just my brain, because I'm so interested in all this kind of stuff, were they symptomatic or not?
At the very beginning, a lot of them were symptomatic.
Were they?
But then
so they came in feeling unwell and in labour?
Yeah. Yeah, as if you could anything worse.
Oh no!
The things that I did made me who I am and gave me the skills I needed to do what I did now. If I said, for example, to my younger self, go into midwifery when you're 18, would I have been as good of a midwife? I don't know.
Yeah.
But because I hadn't had that experience, I hadn't gone through that process, I hadn't done the healthcare assistant role and learnt those really genuine caring skills. So I don't think I'd give myself any different advice, but just go with it. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I think that's just how I see things.
And, you know, it seemed like it happened overnight in terms of his health. So he started to struggle with joint pain, chronic fatigue. I mean, not tired from coming back from work and just feeling tired. I mean, just lying flat on the floor, having no energy to even hold a conversation. It was, and this is, mind you, he was in his early 30s.
Yeah.
Very young.
Yeah.
So it was that time when he was going through the struggle, and you know, we were just like, well, what is going on? Because, you know, yes, I used to enjoy running, doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, quite an active person. to not being able to do anything. When we first started the business, I had this phobia that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's not just about, you know, jumping into a new business, but just, you know, because you feel like this is not my area.
It's called imposter syndrome, isn't
This
it?
This is it. And I think it shouldn't be there, provided
But
you
it's
are...
really there with
It's
girls
there,
and
it's
women.
there, it's there.
Oh, yeah.
Till today, it's there. And I think you've just got to be, you know, like, you've got to have the passion, you have to have the interest, and you've got to be you and share, you know, and that's it. And I'm learning to do that as I'm progressing through this journey. And I'm enjoying
You're believing
it.
you've learned to believe in yourself.
I
more.
really am enjoying it because honestly, Michelle, everybody's winging it. Everybody's winging it.
I can tell when a customer's not right.
Can you?
I can, yeah. And I hate to use the word customer because they're all part of our family, but I have had customers who have cried.
They're just going through some stuff.
They're going through some stuff, so I will take that time. If I can't take the time right then, I will always give them a few minutes then, but I will always come back. And I will make sure that they're okay because life, you know, life has got very busy for everyone, and I think there's a lot of mental health issues and challenges out there.
That risk is very, very well known. They don't know the percentage yet as in comparison to smoking, but you know, vaping is still going to increase your risk of getting oral cancer. And I think oral cancer is something that's not very, you hear about a lot of the other cancers, but you don't hear about oral cancer as much. It's probably one of the most debilitating out of all of them, to be completely honest with you, because I've seen patients have surgery, have their entire tongue removed, they can't speak.
Oh, gosh.
Sometimes if you've got cancer around the tongue, they then have to take a graft, which is a piece of your arm or your leg, and then pop it into your mouth. People want instant results, but I think it's educating the patients to understand the maintenance that comes with it. So composite bonding, for example, is basically white filling material stuck onto your teeth, which could chip, it can stain, it's more prone to staining than your natural enamel is. And, you know, you might need repeated appointments at the dentist to come and get it polished, etc. Whereas your natural enamel just doesn't need that. So it's educating the patient. And most patients, when you tell them the upkeep it's required, or, you know, how many times you have to come in for polishing sessions, they won't have it done. Because there's nothing
It's not just
better.
that initial cost.
Definitely not.
It's the cost over the next, 5 years kind of thing.
And for some people, Michelle, it's not, yes, affordability is important, but even the patients who can afford it, it's the effort of the upkeep. You know, do you want to wake up every morning thinking, oh God, I hope this doesn't chip, or because it is just a filling stuck onto your tooth.
Yeah. We carried on and went through the airport. And then we were shipped into these like minivans that had been lined in plastic. So
You've got photos
so the driver, I'll have to show you. So the driver couldn't get, but the Thai people were terrified of us that we were bringing COVID over to Thailand.
Of course.
So they wouldn't come anywhere near us.
Yeah.
And they looked terrified. So it was just the most bizarre experience. But I think at that point I was on autopilot, you know.
And were you still in your normal clothes at this point?
At that point we were. Then we got to the hotel and we had to take off our clothes and put on scrubs. So we looked like surgeons, but we had to wear these scrubs every day. And then we were handed plastic bags and we had to put them in plastic bags, tie them up, leave them outside the door, shut the door.
So I just did I took a week off work and just went and I worked at the school that the kids were at.
Oh, wow.
And just went and had a look at what it was like in the different classes. And I thought, I think I'm going to really want to do this.
Yeah.
And so I looked into it and I did a PGCE at Leicester Uni for a year. So I kept saying to Laura, you know, what's the minimum I can earn for us to keep the house, and I needed to earn 20 grand, and that was like the starting salary of a teacher at the time.
Oh my
So we had a year of no money.
From my research, I think it's about 28 now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still not great, is it? Because I'd felt so passionate about it and wanting to do absolutely the best, but I've got these lovely children of my own, and I thought I want them to have the absolute best.
Yeah.
So I think you owe it. You cannot turn up. You cannot go into teaching unless you really love it, because the responsibility is too big. It's a bit. I do liken it to medicine and that kind of stuff. Is that you cannot have an off day, because those children deserve better. And I didn't want to turn up and not be ready and not be prepared and not have the best thing that they can do.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when a lesson doesn't go well, you're like, oh, I feel like I've cheated them somehow. So I felt this enormous pressure to be brilliant all the time and to give them the most fun experience. And, you know, when you're trying to teach Roman numerals, that's really hard.
That next day, I emailed them all. Went, right, I've set my own business up. I hadn't registered my name. I hadn't got any. I hadn't got anything. I went, right, I've set my own business up. But I said, I have spoken to the venue. I've got it for these dates. They'd all signed up. I'd sold it all out. You know, within 2 weeks, they were all full. So then I started advertising to new people on, you know, because you obviously had to keep the numbers, keep the flow. And I think for the first 5 months, I kept going to bed thinking, oh shit, how long is this going to last? When's the bottom going to fall out? And
what advice would your older self give you now? So maybe 70-year-old Lisa.
Okay.
What would she say to you now?
She'd say, I'm really bloody proud of you. Sorry, that is quite emotional to say.
It is, it's lovely.
Because you don't say, because Millie, my youngest today, I can't remember what it was about now. I think we were talking about parenting, and she said, you should be really proud of yourself, because not every mum does. Because I went, that's not a mum's job, and she went, not every mum does. You should be proud of yourself.
When did they adopt you? What age were you?
Oh, they met me when I was 2 days old. They knew my birth mother while she was pregnant with me.
But bear in mind, you were from pretty much day one.
Yeah.
You were raised completely by them.
But you know you're different. You know, as you get older, you know you were rejected. You weren't wanted, because you still think, why didn't this person keep me? You don't know the whole story, you know. I do now, because I've researched so much. And you speak to any adopted person, they have this same feeling of rejection, lack of identity, not fitting in. Plus,
even if it's a loving, really loving home, there's still that niggly.
Yeah, it's still there, because you know you could have been in another. I mean, if I grew up with my birth family, I would have been one of 5. I would have been raised as a Catholic. I would have, you know, it wouldn't have been the same as being an only child. You know, it would have been a different path, so probably a different me.
Funnily enough, 2 people inspired me to go back to college. One person, I won't name who they are, but one person said, oh, if you were going to do it, you'd have done it by now. You know, it's not going to happen, is it? Too tricky. Yeah. And then the other person, my lovely French sister-in-law, said, of course you can do it, Nikki. You know, you can make that drive. You can do it. What are you talking about? Yeah. She was so sort of
brilliant.
So 2 people spurred me on to go back.
For very different reasons.
You know, that's quite well known now that it can help with IVF and it can help regulate hormones. Yeah. Obviously, it can help at the other end when our hormones are changing. It can help regulate sleep, hot flushes, you know. I mean, I would always try other methods. I know there's a big HRT push at the moment. But it's not for everyone. You know.
That is the system, though. The system is just go and get drugs.
I would say probably 70% of my patients are on some form of medication.
But for now, I do things like flax stock, or I help friends or family that are in need. Yeah. And I don't generally charge for it. I just do it for people close to me that...
Well, and also just because it's good for your soul.
I love it. I love it. I love giving back.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then did the healing just organically came as a part of that, or is that part of the healing?
So I think I've got a womb disease.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for a hysterectomy.
Oh, right,
and before COVID, I healed my womb with my own Reiki and with another lady that was doing womb massage and reflexology. Oh, wow. So healing's always been... I'm massively spiritual, really into healing up, healing down, healing sideways, cycle breaking. Find the joy.
Yeah.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Pick your battles.
Yeah.
Drop the ego.
So pick your battles.
Find the joy.
Find the joy. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Drop your ego. Also, I was talking to a friend of mine who I've known for a long time. She used to live out in Ibiza, and we hooked up in Birmingham, a few of us, a few weeks ago. Wow. And we went down a real spiritual rabbit hole one night. And she said to me, "Does it really matter?" And that is really advanced spiritual thing.
That is really, yeah.
But this is a journey. So there's no right answer. I'm forging my own path. I've done an online gallery. I've since had an in-person physical gallery. I have launched my art consultancy business. I also do events, and I have 4 threads to the business, and that is enough to keep me agile. And if one's not quite working, I will tweak it and make changes. Yeah, brilliant. But there's no plan C. This is it. I'm all in. Everything on red, or whatever the phrase is, and I love it. I have one which I write in every new notebook when I open a new notebook, which is like a almost religious experience for me. I love opening a new notebook because it's like the beginning of new possibilities. I have a saying which I learnt from, I can't remember who, but it's comparison is the thief of joy.
It's a great one.
Oh my goodness, it's blighted me my whole life. You know, in school you think, oh, I'm not very clever because I didn't get very good marking, they did better. And then you get into the work world and you think, well, they're getting promoted faster than me, and they've got a better salary, they've got a better house, a better car.
Copywriters is something I've noticed more from what I recruit for, because in, 2021, 2022, I was recruiting a lot of copywriters. I got a lot of freelance copywriters, and copywriting was probably the biggest requirement for me, the biggest request.
Yeah.
Now, it's probably over a year since I've actually had a copywriting brief.
And I bet that was AI.
Yeah. And it's hard because, again, you know, there are people you're talking to, or was talking to on a regular basis, you know, great candidates who are now shouting out for work, you know, and everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah, because people just, what you've now got is those in-house teams just using ChatGPT and all this kind of stuff, haven't you?
50% at least of my jobs don't have salaries on.
Because they don't want
me, and that's the frustrating thing, because people that are looking for jobs have a go at me because I don't have a salary on there, but I'm not allowed to advertise the salaries.
No.
And the reasons most of the time are, you know, because we've got people internally that are doing a similar job, we don't want them to know what we're paying the new people, probably because they're underpaying the people that we've already got.
Of course, I haven't thought about it.
And that's half the battle. Those that are offering flexibility are great, and the flexibility is there. But more and more people are wanting people back on site full time. Will not consider even one day hybrid. It's
I
5 days a
remember
week on site
looking
or
at
nothing.
a job that was hybrid, and then when I asked about it, it was like 1 day from home or something. You're kind of going, oh gosh, okay, that's not massively hybrid then, is it?
Yeah. I just find it so rewarding to watch people grow in confidence and self-esteem and, you know, sort of just own who they are. I think, you know, with gyms and stuff, it can be quite intimidating and people can maybe be judgmental or feel like they're being judged. And,
or watched. You just kind of feel like you're being watched a bit, don't you?
Whereas here, I have always said, like, it needs to be welcoming and, you know, just that safe environment for people. That's what pole has been for me. I think to just embrace who you are. Everyone is, you know, different, unique in their own ways. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. Mm-hmm. Actually, those weaknesses might be strengths. So I think, you know, it's really easy in this day and age to compare ourselves to others, particularly on social media, when actually we need to step back and think, you know, well, what can I do? How can I better myself, you know, to help myself, rather than trying to be like everyone else and trying to be better. Like, again, relating it to pole, I see it a lot with students. Oh, they can do this, but I can't do this. And, you know, well, what can you do that they can't do?
Yeah.
There's always something, and, you know, I try and remind people, look back at where you started and look where you are now and see that growth rather than looking at someone else's journey.
Because she was taking part in trials, she was at Henna Hospital.
Okay.
So you take it in turns, you know, I was commuting down to see her in Henna
to get to as well, isn't it? It's not like it's just North London or something.
No. And at the time, is when I look back, of course, at college and at university, I never said what was happening. And I don't know whether, you know, it's just...
What, to anyone?
No, I just... so nobody actually knew my home situation. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and I think
Is that because
crumbled.
do you think you almost weren't wanting to accept it was going on, or you just wanted to manage it in your own way?
Yeah, I think it was me keeping
control
of
over it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
So like the reflex areas particularly for the brain is your toes. So you work the toes.
Yeah.
And also like the big toe has got your pituitary gland, hypothalamus, and the pineal, which is which helps with your melatonin levels, which will help with sleep. So within those areas, what you can often feel is grit. It's like a little build up. So it's like little crystal build up, like little grains of sand. So that would be something. So for a menopausal woman, I'd work over the toes area a lot more.
Yeah.
But in terms of my skill set, that's what I really feel passionate about getting better at.
Yeah.
Is I want to be a great journalist. I want to be a really good writer, and I want to be known for my writing. So that's my goal.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. It's going to take a long time. I want to go and study. I want to do some journalism courses and some writing courses.
Yeah.
And I want my name to be out there as a journalist.
So does this might mean you could write for other people as well?
Very much so, yeah. So many years that I wanted to be in this world, and I feel very thankful and very humbled that I am almost in this world. And there was a little moment over this summer that was the moment that I just sort of stopped and I stood in silence and I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. So I was very, very lucky to be offered the opportunity to write for Bloodfest, which is Young Blood's festival. This is the first year that he's put this on. The lineup was incredible. There's amazing names on the lineup.
He has really hardcore fans as well, doesn't he?
Oh, it's like a cult.
Yeah.
But they are so committed to him.
So I love orthodox medicine. My dream is that herbal medicine and orthodox medicine can work side by side.
Absolutely,
We do. So we can liaise with your GPs. We can liaise with your all your healthcare team.
Yeah.
And we often do. But it would be great to be able to see it a bit more amalgamated.
Yeah.
Western herbal medicine, which is my training, is a amalgamation of lots of different traditional medicines. And we use lots of different techniques from all over the world and historically, as well as our own from the UK.
Yeah.
So we also check the tongue. So I would ask my patients to show me their tongue, and we assess the tongue, and we can read so much into that. We ask you whether you're a hot or a cold person, because that makes a massive difference into who you are as a person, how your body is functioning.
Yes.
And also what herbs we give, because some herbs are cooling and some herbs are heating. So the approach we take is so in depth of the way we look at you as a person. Yeah, it is incredible.
Imagine now an 18-year-old, not sure if he's gay, not sure if he was straight, all of a sudden catapulted into a world he'd never been to.
Hadn't really planned it, almost just happened into it.
Just happened.
Yeah.
And it was really weird because my university place was also in London.
Yeah.
So I was now working for this international hairdressing brand in Knightsbridge, rubbing shoulders with like models and things like we used to call them Maharad's helmets, where they would basically come and just get a daily blow dry. And all of a sudden I was catapulted into this world of glamorous gay men, straight men.
Well, the brand you're talking about, which we won't name it, people can probably guess, but
back in the day, that
was the brand. That was the hairdressing salon. It was the brand to be at, and you just might have happened into it.
I just kind of stumbled into it. It was the only hairdressing brand to receive something like super brand status, which is the same as people like Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
She then threw me a bit of a line and said, would you like to be assistant manager of your current store, or would you consider buying the franchise of said store?
Yeah.
I then spoke to my parents about it, figured it all out, and thought to myself, if I don't do it now, I probably will never do it.
Yeah.
Because you'll end up with someone, you'll end up in debt, you're buying a house, all this different stuff.
Yeah.
So I ploughed in both feet and bought the franchise.
I know.
And I was the youngest franchisee in Europe at 22.
I know.
It was a big old decision.
It
and
was a big decision.
Scary as all hell.
Yeah.
But it was a really good decision.
Yeah.
And working for that brand was a brilliant thing for me. I absolutely loved it.
What you do for the service, that is high customer expectations, isn't it? Whether it's a wedding or an event or anything, people are expecting. It's not just like ordering a pair of shoes, is it? You know, people are expecting.
Yeah, I would always say people's expectations are high, but then I would say my expectations of myself are always higher. I'll be with anything that I do, I'm still coming away like, was that good enough? Was that okay? And it always is. But I know that I need to have that in my mind, and my expectations always need to be higher than the customer's expectations.
Obviously, people can quite easily chime in at this point and tell me I'm wrong, but people are very much about career progression, whether or not they're at the level to do the job. And I think a lot of people have progressed in industry and business far quicker than they probably should have.
Yeah, I call that wage progression, not career progression.
Yeah.
It means that business is much less stable than you would want it to be, either inside the business or the national economy. I have the impression that still in Central Europe, Germany particularly, people still work for companies for a long period and are progressed there.
But you're kind of establishing that connection, you're weighing people up, you're seeing who's good at this, who's good at that, how that person operates. So when you are remote, you know how to judge it. Whereas I think if you just have that initial, even though you can see someone, you don't get all the little minutiae.
You don't get to know anyone, do you?
There's one judgment that I think is very important. Being in the office, you get to know who the tossers are.
Yes.
When you tend to talk to, these are the relationships I'm forming and this is who can help me with this. But there's that dark side that says, and these are the people who don't contribute anything. And if you don't know that, then in your secluded environment at home...
You might start thinking that, and maybe you talk to someone else about it. But actually, if you're in the office and there's three of you, and that person, is obviously being a tosser, then the other two people, all you need to do, you look at one another, and there's a raised eyebrow. And you both know that you're both thinking...
Yeah, which you can't do that online.
And you can't do that online. And the whole thing about not face-to-face is that it's that one step removed, so there is that slight detachment, and you feel that you can be a little more...
Well, your emails are probably a bad analogy of that, but on social, you're talking about Twitter and stuff, aren't you? People definitely feel that they can just, because they're detached, they can say whatever they want to say.
Yes. Okay, in an email you're not anonymous, but the further you get from that face-to-face thing, I think
we become
less
ruder.
Polite you are. Yeah. And then obviously then how does that land? What are you hoping to get out of this interchange?
It really affected my mental health, actually. I felt very low, very overwhelmed, and just couldn't kind of see the wood for the trees through it all. So I bought Marie Kondo's book to kind of help me get into the frame of mind. And I actually suggested a friend of mine who she also struggled with too much clutter in her house. Kids the same age. Her husband worked really long hours, so she felt it was all down to her to sort it out. So we actually did a couple of days helping each other out. I said, why don't we do this together? Dilly wanted us to go and help her on a job.
Right.
So we could actually meet her.
Yeah.
We could work together, like there'd be a team of us, doing like a whole house in a day or something like that. And I went to Stacey Solomon's house in Essex with a team of others, and we went and sorted out Stacey Solomon's house. And this was just before she got married.
Wow.
Because she got married at the reception, I think, was in her garden.
Okay, so she wanted it all...
And she wanted it all spruced up for that.
Because they probably they probably sold all the pictures and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a guy who I've been mentored by called Dr. John DeMartini. Fascinating guy to listen to. He's got a podcast and everything. Very deep stuff. And he talks about voids and values.
Yeah.
Okay, and so people, you know when you meet someone and you kind of don't get on with them or whatever else, and they do something to you and you go, well, how could that person do something like that to me, right? They haven't done anything wrong, right? What they've done is they've just tried to, the way he expresses it, they're trying to fill their voids the best way they can with what they value. And because you don't value the same thing as that person, you see as a conflict, how could that person do that, right? But actually, they don't see it like that.
No.
The reason people fail, back to your question, other than not being clear, is they give up because it becomes too hard and they haven't anticipated that along the journey. So it's the way I look at it is, it's not going to be easy. It is going to be difficult. But if you can anticipate as best you can that those things are going to happen, what can you do to yourself and what can you control that's going to allow that to be as an easier thing to navigate? Right? And the people who have the most success, it's never just luck. I mean, luck happens to some extent once you put everything else into it.
Once you've got yourself in the right place.
But I do think a lot of people, they don't work on themselves enough to feel confident to stay the course.
So I often look around and think, this is just mental. You know, what a job. You know, divers working at 150 metres, you know, several hundred feet on the bottom of the North Sea, doing this mad job that no one knows.
I know.
And you're in charge of, and being, as a supervisor, responsible and in charge of so much. You have a ship, you know, a ship's crew. During the diving op, because of the way we do things, it's probably quite safe. I mean, let's face it, it's inherently dangerous to be diving at deep depths that you can't just come out of. That's something else to sort of note here. You can't, if there's a problem, you can't just come out. So if someone cuts their arm off, they've, you know, from 100 metres,
still got to stay down.
You've still got a 4-day decompression, roughly, whatever. So you ain't just coming out. It's not like doing a surface dive down to 20 metres where you're just coming out.
So you can injure yourself and die from the injury. Not actually 100%. From the thing,
There's so much, it's so dangerous from that point of view that if you...
That you can't hurt yourself,
you cannot hurt yourself and you can't have a heart attack.
It really takes some self-care before you go into those appointments because you have no idea what you're there for. Most of the times it just says medical. Well, that could mean anything. And sadly, I have had to tell people really bad news.
Oh my gosh, that was going to be... Oh, I was thinking that. That was one of the things in my head.
Because you hear it before you interpret it. And there's a real skill in having to hear sometimes that horrible C word that we don't want to hear in a medical setting and then have to give that to somebody else. But just be very careful that the doctor doesn't say cancer and then my face goes before I say it to the client. It's really...
Because they're just looking at you,
they
are.
And with deaf people, because they don't have the sense of hearing, their sight is always enhanced.
So they can pick up on tiny
So your tiny little eyebrow just popping up and they're like, what's that?
Yeah.
So we have to be careful. A lot of families don't actually sign well enough with their deaf child or, you know, it's sad actually because a lot of parents that do have deaf children, they don't always make the effort to learn sign language. It's actually crazy how many parents I come across with deaf children that don't sign. So it's like, how do you communicate? Oh, we get by with mime. And I just think...
But there's no tone around, like you've just said, there's nothing,
there's no
it's
substance.
just blank, isn't it?
Yeah. I just think when my daughter comes home from school and she's upset and she's fallen out with a friend, we sit and have that conversation and I support her and I reassure her. But can you imagine not having that because your parent hasn't bothered to learn your language? They know that there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
But they're just not being given the access. No, which is really frustrating.
It must feel so... I want to say lonely, but almost like you just exclude. It is so isolating. So basically, they're born, they grow up, and
innately feel isolated.
Yeah.
And like they're not really a part of the world.
Yeah, and not given the same opportunities. I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday and we were saying about deaf people are actually fantastic workers because
they're not
they
distracted.
don't get distracted.
Yes.
And also they're very loyal. So many deaf people I've met, they've been in the company 20 years, 30 years, 15 years, 40 years, because when they're in and they know what they're doing, they'll stay because they know they might want to jump to another company and they might want to move up career, but they're not given the opportunity, so they just stay safe, which is unfair in itself.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.TWWork.org. The link is in this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.